Here's a number worth knowing before you send your next renewal notice. On a typical Oakland rental, taking the full 2.3% rent increase gets you about $52 a month. A single tenant turnover can wipe out more than 4 years of that gain. So when is a rent increase actually worth the risk of losing a good tenant? Let's run the math, using our own portfolio data, not a guess. First, the caps themselves. For the period running August 2026 through July 2027, Oakland's rent adjustment program allows a 2.3% increase on wrap-covered units. Berkeley's annual general adjustment holds at 1% for eligible fully covered units this calendar year. Richmond's is 1.5% starting in September, and the statewide cap under AB 1482 is 8.8% for covered units. But here's the part landlords get wrong most often. If a unit isn't covered by one of those local programs, that doesn't automatically mean it falls under the state cap instead. AB 1482 has its own separate exemptions. You check local coverage and state coverage independently. Never assume one gives you the other. Now here's why the size of that local number actually matters. On Oakland's 2.3%, you're gaining about $52 a month or $624 a year. On Berkeley's 1%, it's closer to $23 a month, under $300 a year. Those are small numbers, and a turnover isn't small. We track every move out and move in across our own managed portfolio, and over the past 12 months, we completed 79 turnovers, averaging 37.8 days from move out to move in. Cleaning, repairs, photography, listing, showings, screening, the whole cycle, not just the days a listing sat active. On a typical Oakland unit renting around $2,263 a month, that vacancy alone costs about $2,851, and that's before counting make-ready repairs or a leasing fee. Put those two numbers side by side. $624 a year from the increase against $2,851 for one turnover. That's about 4.5 years of increases to equal one vacancy. That comparison shows you the scale of what's at stake, but it's not quite the right question because a turnover isn't guaranteed just because you raise the rent. The sharper question is, how much does the increase actually need to raise your tenant's odds of leaving before it stops being worth it? Run it as expected value. $624 divided by $2,851 is about 22%. That means the increase breaks even if taking it raises your tenant's chance of leaving by roughly 22 percentage points. Say, from a 5% baseline up to around 27%. If you think a modest capped increase moves that needle from 5 to 10%, it's an easy win. If you think it moves it from 5 to 35%, a genuinely upset tenant, the math flips the other way. None of this means you should hold rent flat as a default either. There are real situations where pushing the full increase is still the right call. If a turnover is already likely for reasons that have nothing to do with the increase, say a payment or compliance issue already in play, or if a lawful turnover is already underway, like a planned renovation or a tenant who's already given notice. In those cases, the retention premium from holding rent flat is smaller because you were probably losing that tenant anyway. Here's how we actually run this at renewal time. Before we recommend a number to an owner, we check 3 things: whether the unit is covered by a local rent program and which limit applies, the tenant's payment and compliance history, and how the increase compares to what a turnover would realistically cost on that specific unit. On a rent-controlled property with a reliable tenant, that math usually favors taking the increase. A small number, taken consistently, still beats risking a $2,851 vacancy to chase a slightly higher one later. But it's a calculation we run property by property, not a policy we apply across the board. If you want the full breakdown, the exact figures, the break-even formula you can run on your own unit, and when holding rent flat actually makes sense. The complete guide is linked below. We manage 600 plus units across Emeryville, Oakland, Berkeley, and Richmond. And this is the exact math we run every renewal season. If this was useful, subscribe. We cover this every week. See you in the next one.